Good evening, everyone. Okay, so let's say Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Homage to the sublime, the victorious, and totally self-enlightened one. Okay. So welcome everyone. Very good to see you all. And today we are going to talk about mental processes. As we know, there are 6 kinds of doors from which information is received. Therefore, we can name the processes by way of door. So say eye door mental process, ear door mental process, nose door mental process, and these 5 sense door mental process, and the mind door mental processes. So if we name the processes by way of door, then we have 6 kinds of different processes, right? 6 kinds of witty. Now, if we look at the 5 sense door process, which is this eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body door processes. What we have to know here is that the object that the chittas in this process, that they take the object that they are taken by these chittas, they are always a present object. That means the eye can only see something that is present, or that exists at the present moment. So eye consciousness can take that present object as object. And sound, if it is a 5 sense door process, meaning an ear door process, it must be something that is happening right now. So some sound that is a present object. In the same way for smell, taste, and tangible object. Yeah. So if the object is a past object or a future object or a concept object, then they will not be taken by the 5 sense door thought processes. They will be taken by the mind door process. Yeah. So for 5 sense door process, the object are always a present object. Now for mind door process, there are also different kind of mind door process, which we will look at later on, but we will see that because the mind door process is not limited by the present object, therefore it is not only strictly 17 thought moments. You see that it is it has much less chittas here, right? So because it does not take the 5 sense object or the present object that exists for the 17 moment. Therefore, it is not restricted to the 17 moments. Later, we will talk about this a little bit more. Before we talk about the mind door process, we will first talk about the 5 sense door process. Remember, for let's say an eye door process to arise, there's some conditions must be fulfilled. We have talked about this previously. We need the sensitive matter. We need Pasada Rupa, other eye sensitivity. We need a visible object. Then there must be a contact. Then there must be attention as well. There are some details that I want to tell you here. Remember, this attention here, this attention, actually, it is the Panchadwara Avajana Chitta. So in ultimate reality, this attention does not actually only mean that we pay attention to something, but it is actually the 5 door averting consciousness. So for an eye door mental process to arise, of course, we need the eye sensitivity, we need a visible object and the contact of the eye sensitivity and the visible object. We need light. And also we need the Panchadwara Avajana Chitta. The 5 door averting consciousness, because without this 5 door averting consciousness, the eye door mental process cannot arise. So in the same way, we can understand that for the other senses, ear door, nose door, the tongue door, and the body door, this attention, they all mean the 5 door averting consciousness. Okay, so that's one detail. And another thing that we have to know is that is the object. Now, the object itself must be clear enough for the mind, or for this eye consciousness, ear consciousness, etc., to perceive. Yeah, sometimes there can be sound happening, but maybe it's too soft, and we might not be able to hear it. And it is same for sight, for smell, for taste, and for touch. Now, for touch, the earth element, which is the tangible object, it must be, the earth element must be hard enough to be obvious. Like, say, in a bubble, it is a tangible object, but it is not very obvious to our touch. When we touch it, we don't feel it so much. Now, if we take a look at this photo, like if we are holding a soap, the soap itself is hard enough, so we feel it quite obviously. But those little foam on our hand, that touch is much softer, right? It's not so obvious. So it depends on how obvious that object is to the sense, then meaning the impact of that object to the sense, to the mind, how strong that impact is, then different kind of five sense door process can happen, depending on the object, how clear the object is. Okay, so since we're talking about five sense door process now, we will now only focus on the five senses. Later, we will go to the mind door, okay? So for the five sense door mental process, the objects, it is said that it can be presented to the mind in four ways. The first one is as a very great object. That is in Pali called Atimahanta. And the second way is as a great object, Mahanta. The third one is as a slight object, Parita, or as a very slight object, Atiparita. So in this four-way, five sense object can be presented to the mind. Now, when we talk about great here, it does not mean that it is great in size or that it is very gross, but it means the force of the impact on the consciousness is great or strong. So the thing can be very small. It can be a small flower, but its force can be strong enough to strike the mind for at least 17 thought moments. So such object, when it is very clearly presented to the eye consciousness, not to the mind, then such object is called a very great object. Now, sometimes there are objects that are not very clear. Taking the sight for as an example. So if it is not very clear, then those objects does not have that much impact to impact the mind for the 17 mind moments. Later, when we see the process, then we will know more clearly. But if the object is not clear enough, then it is not called a very great object, but instead it's called a great object or a slight object, or even if it is less clear, then it will be called as a very slight object. We will have examples of the mental processes now. Okay, first, remember that last week we talked about the eye door mental process, the usual eye door mental process that consists of 17 thought moments. Is usually like this, right? 3 bhavanga, and then the 5 door averting consciousness, then the Chakku Vijnana, eye consciousness, Sampatichana, receiving, Santirana, investigating, Vatabhana, determining. Then we have 7 jhavanas, Tadaramana, and then go back to the bhavanga stream. Yeah. So this is a usual eye door mental process. Now remember, these 3 bhavanga, all the bhavangas actually, the bhavanga in the although these 3 bhavanga is inside the eye door process, but what kind of object does it take? Remember, what kind of object does bhavanga take? It does not take the present visible object. Yeah, it takes karma nimitta or gati nimitta, right? Because the bhavanga chitta is the same type of chitta as the rebirth consciousness and as the death consciousness. So the object here of this bhavanga is either the previous karma or a karma related object, or agati nimitta, which is the destination where the person is to be reborn, right? So although it is these three bhavanga is inside the mental thought process, I mean the 5 I-door mental process, it does not take the present object. So therefore, these chittas, these bhavangas here is called process-free chitta. So vitimutta chitta. They are called process-free because they don't come from any door. Bhavanga itself is the mind door, yeah? So it does not come through any door, so they are called process-free. Now, from Panchadvara Jhana Chitta, from the 5-door averting consciousness to Tadaramana, what kind of object does it take? It takes the present visible object as its object, yeah? So what the eye is actually seeing at that moment. So this chitta, from here to here, this 14 is called the processed chitta. So viti chittas. So within the 17 thought moment inside a process, inside I-door mental process, the bhavangas are called process-free vitimutta chitta, and all the others, these chittas are called viti chittas, the processed chittas. Okay. So this is just only for your information. Later, we will talk more about the viti chittas and therefore why we need to know they are processed chittas. Okay. All right. Now, for the I-door mental process to happen, how does it happen? The stream of bhavanga is flowing. Yeah. Then, when a visible object comes into the avenue of the eye, the active mental process starts. So the visible object is said to impinge upon our eye as well as the bhavanga at the same time. So when the visible object comes into the avenue of the eye, so it touches the eye sensitivity, then bhavanga chitta here is being struck, it said. So it strike the bhavanga chitta. So there is this one moment, the first moment where something is happening. And this bhavanga chitta has a special name because an active process is about to start. So this one is called a pas bhavanga, atita bhavanga. Okay, so when the bhavanga chitta is struck by the object, that moment is called a pas bhavanga. And that moment is before the bhavanga vibrates. So after that, it comes 2 moments of vibration, or 2 bhavangas. Okay, so these 2 bhavanga is called bhavanga charana, so vibrating bhavanga. And the next one is called arresting bhavanga, bhavangupacheda. So these 2, so when the object first contact to the eye sensitivity is strike the bhavanga, then something is happening. Then the bhavanga shakes a little bit, and then it stops. Then the normal process happens. So the 5-door averting consciousness, eye consciousness, and so on. Yeah. So this bhavanga is actually like a ball. So when the bhavanga flow, it flows like many bhavanga chitta arise. Yeah, so it is flowing with a rapid force. With the force, it's flowing. And when object strikes the bhavanga at the eye, it cannot just stop abruptly like that. So it's like a ball. When it is rolling, it cannot just stopped. You know, so it rolls a little bit and then it stops. So these 3 bhavanga serves a little bit like this, like the stopping of the bhavanga stream. So after these 3 bhavanga, then bhavanga stream stopped and active mind process starts. Okay, so bhavanga, 2 bhavanga, and then Panchadvara Avajana Chitta happens. So from here, if the object is a very great object, that means if the object is very, very clear to the mind, it will impact the mind for these 14 process chitta, for 14 chittas will arise before the bhavanga stream arise again. So that's when the object is very clear, which is the very great object, Atimahanta process. So the usual, this is the usual classic process that we usually use as an example. So bhavanga stream flowing, pas bhavanga, vibrating bhavanga, resting bhavanga, then the 5-door turning five-door averting consciousness, then the so on and so on, and finishing with 2 Tadaramana, the aftertaste of the jhavanas, and then go back to the Bhavanga stream before another chitta arises. Yeah. I see there is a question. Okay. Yes, Claudia. Okay. Can I understand what means that the object is clear to the mind?
Sorry, I just because when we meditate and we say, for example, thinking when we think, or if I see something, I say seeing. This is what doesn't mean to be clear. So to know exactly what it is the recollection of the object is correct, or there is another no?
Let's say if it is a visible object, if the object is very clear, you can see it very clearly, then it is a clear object. Then sometimes maybe the object is not very clear. Just like this picture, for example, if you see the projection. So this object is not so clear. So, but it is still, the mind can, the eye consciousness still arises, we can still see it. So that's object is not very clear. But if, let's say, if we listen to sound, sometimes the sound is clear enough. Sometimes it's a little bit like too soft, or sometimes we can't hear it very well. So that is what it means by clear or not clear to the mind. So here, since we are talking about the present object, so the object is what is happening at the present moment. Yeah, so therefore it is through the 5 senses that we get information. Now, sometimes it is clear, sometimes it's not clear. If a sound happens like very far away, sometimes we don't hear it very well. When we may hear something, but we're not sure what they are talking about, it's like a little bit too far, or like, so that kind of clear or not clear.
So, like, let's say that it's not related with mindfulness in this case. The clarity of the object is, it's not related that if you understand the object or not. It's only if you perceive it properly.
At this moment, yes, because if the mind understands it or not, it involves other mind door process, not just only the eye door process. Since we are talking about only the 5 sense process right now, so this object is how it is presented to the mind at the moment we are talking about. Then later, whether we understand it or not, it comes later. Hopefully today we have enough time to cover that material as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, so let's see what happened if the object is a little bit less clear. No, so it's a Mahanta object. In this case, those objects which force is not enough, is not so much as the very great object. What happens here is that it needs another past bhavanga for the mind to catch it, because it is not clear enough. So it needs a little bit more time for the mind to catch it. Sayadaw Silananda, he gives an example. I think it's a very nice how to understand it. He says, say a person is sleeping in deep sleep. So Bhavanga Chitta is like we're sleeping now in deep sleep. Then when something happens, let's say someone knocks on the door, someone knocks on the door. If the knock is very clear, only one time, then the mind wakes up. It knows, oh, something is happening. Someone knocks on the door. Yeah, if it is strong enough, if the impact is strong enough. But if the impact is not strong enough, if the knock is soft, the person might not wake up. So you might need to knock 2 times or more times for him to wake up, because the impact is not strong enough. So here, if the object is not strong enough, one striking to the bhavanga is not enough for it to start the process. So here it takes 2 past bhavanga before the other 2 bhavanga actually vibrates and starts the process. Okay. Now here you have to look at the this process here. So from here until here is 17 moment. You see, one Tadaramana in the usual process is out of the idle process, not out of the 17 moment, right? So here, something, it becomes a problem because Tadaramana, when it arises, it always arises together. It arises, twice, one after the other. So it either do not arise at all or it arises 2 times. Because after Javana, Tadaramana take the taste of the Javana, no? The aftertaste of the Javana. So it is compared to the water following a speedboat in the lake. Yeah. So after the speedboat runs, then some water remains like the aftertaste of the because of the boat, so that water flows. Yeah. So in the same way, Tadaramana flows 2 times after Javana. But here, since one Tadaramana is out of the process, so it cannot be. So therefore, in this case, with great object, Tadaramana will not arise at all. So what happens is that another Bhavanga will arise here before it flows back to the usual Bhavanga flow. So for the great object, it will end with Bhavanga Chitta and begins with 2 past Bhavanga. Okay, so that is one option, one possibility for great object. And how about like if the object is still a little bit less clear? It is still a great object, but it is not yet that clear. So in that case, it may take 3 past Bhavanga for the Bhavanga to start shaking and stop and start the process. So in this case, that is the second possibility for another type of mental process, which begins with 3 past Bhavanga and ends with Javana. So this is another type of possibility for great object. Okay, so now the impact here of the object is not so great. So it can only impact 12 of the process chitta here. So we have more process-free chitta, and those process chittas are only starting from here until the Javana, only 12 of them. Okay, so this is the 2 possibilities for great object. Okay, now let's see. What if the object is even less clear? So that is, let's say, a slight object, parita viti, process of slight object. Basically, what happened is the same. It needs more past Bhavanga. It needs no more knock on the door for the person to wake up. So more past Bhavanga here. Now we see 1, 2, 3, 4 past Bhavanga, and here what happened? What happened with the Javana? One Javana is out of the process, right? So Javana always, usually it happens most of the time, in usual case, 7 Javana moments. So if this one is out already, so it doesn't work also. So in this case, the Javana will not arise, and instead, after 2 Vatabana, 2 determining consciousness, then it will go to Bhavanga and then follow with the Bhavanga stream. Here, it's like is knocking, the object is knocking in the mind. Oh, something is happening, turn. Oh, something to see. Then the eye consciousness arise, receive the object, investigating and determine. But before it kind of doesn't know how to react to the object because it's not clear. Then another determining consciousness arise again to try to do something, but it is just too soft. The mind cannot catch the object clearly, so it goes back to Bhavanga. Then no Javana arise in this case if the object is a slight object. Okay, so another Vatavana arise and then it goes back. So here in this process, it begins with 4 past Bhavanga and it ends with 5 Bhavanga after 2 determining consciousness. And still here is the 17th moment, because this object, although it is not clear, this present visible object, it still lasts for the 17th moment. Yeah. So from here until here, that present visible object also ceased. Until here, is it clear? Yeah, everyone okay? All right. Okay, so that's the first possibility for one type of process. And another process is basically similar. So what happens is the object is again less clear than more past Bhavanga, 5 past Bhavanga, and here it will be ending with 4 Bhavanga Chitta after 2 determining consciousness. Then the third possibility will be more past Bhavanga, so 6 past Bhavanga, and ends with 3 Bhavanga after 2 Vatabana, determining consciousness. And again, if it is still not clear, still less clear, then they will have more past Bhavanga, and here finishing with 2 Bhavanga after the 2 determining. Another possibilities, again, more Bhavanga, so 8 past Bhavanga and ends with 1 Bhavanga after the 2 Vatabana. Or the last option for the slight object is it will begin with 9 Bhavanga Chitta and finished with the 2 determining consciousness and go back to the Bhavanga stream. So this is the 6 possible process, I-DOR mental process for object that is not clear, not so clear, that is the Parita Viti, the Parita process, slight objects process. Now, what about the object that is called the very slight object? So Atiparita. It's basically the mind doesn't get it at all. It's so unclear. Now, what happens? So again, more past Bhavanga, yeah? Now, with more past Bhavanga happening here, the whole process, the whole 5-door averting, the eye consciousness and all this, they don't even arise. The process chitta don't even arise because the object is so not clear. The mind is only that it kind of strike the mind a little bit. So something is happening, and then because it is so not clear that the mind don't even know where to turn to. So it doesn't even turn, and then it just goes back to Bhavanga, the flow of the Bhavanga. So here, although it is said I-DOR process, but actually eye consciousness don't even arise. So it is so unclear that it's just little shaking and go back. So the second possibility for this kind of very slight object is again more past Bhavanga, the third possibility, fourth possibility, and then the fifth possibility, and the sixth last type of chitta will be just striking, trying something happening, just shake a little bit and go back to the flow. Like basically nothing happened, just the mind's a little bit like something, but again goes back. Okay, so that's all the possibility for our I-DOR mental process. So if we take a look at this chart, then we can see when the object is a very great object, that process will have only 1 past Bhavanga, 2 vibrating Bhavanga, and then it will end with 2 Tadaramana, and then before it goes back to the Bhavanga flow. And this type of process is called the Tadaramana course. It ends with the Tadaramana. Now, if the object is a little bit less clear, then it will have a little bit more past Bhavanga, and it will end with the 7 Javana without Tadaramana. If the object is a slight object, then it will have from 4 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 past Bhavanga and ends with 2 determining consciousness. So here, eye consciousness did arise. It did see something, but the mind cannot react to it because it's not clear enough. Then it just, after determining consciousness, then it just go back to Bhavanga stream. Now, when the object is a very slight object, then the mind basically just shakes a little bit, something happened and nothing, and goes back to the Bhavanga flow, the usual Bhavanga flow. So that is all the possibilities depending on the clarity of the object. Okay, so for I-DOR process, we have one type of process ending with Tadaramana when the object is very clear. We have 2 types when the object is great object, not that clear, but it's still clear. And we have 6 when it is a slight object, and another 6 possibility when it is a very slight object. So that gives 15 possibilities at the eye-door process. I mean, at the eye-door. So when we see something, one of these 15 process may arise depending on how clear the object is. And in the same way, it is for e-door process. When the sound is very clear, it will end with tadaramana. When the sound is less clear, it is a mahanta object, a great object, it will end with javana. And then when the object is not clear, it will only end with the determining consciousness, or the e-consciousness doesn't even arise. It's just bhavanga shaking a little bit and goes back to the bhavanga flow. So in the same way, for all the other senses, if we have 15 possible different processes at each sense door, then altogether we have 75 possible different types of process in the 5 sense door process. Is that clear? Yeah. Okay. We'll go to the mind door process now. We're finished with the 5 sense door process. Okay. Now, for mental processes, we can divide it into the 5 sense door process and the mind door process. And now we have just finished looking at the 5 sense door process, the 75 different kinds of possibilities for the 5 sense door process, depending on how clear the object is, whether it's a very great object, a slight object, or a very slight object. Then how about mind door? Now for mind door mental process, it can be in big category. It can be divided into karma viti, which is karma javana viti, which is the mind door process that takes the 5 sense object. I take the sense objects as object. And here, when it takes sense object, then it will be further divided into depending on whether the object is clear or it is not clear. It will have different kind of process. Now we will look at it in detail. So here's just like an introduction. So don't worry if you don't understand exactly here. Okay. Then the other type of process is when the mind take apana object. So that is attainment, or like for example, jhana attainment, or the magga and phala process. So those will be a different kind of mind door process. Okay. So first, let's take a look about this the karma object. Whether it's clear or whether it's not clear. So in the same way as the 5 sense door process, in the same way, whether the 5 sense object is clearly presented to the mind or not, in the same way for mind door process, it is also divided into a clear object, which is called vibhuta, or not so clear or an obscure object that is called avibhuta object. So objects that are presented to the mind, sometimes they can be very clear or very vivid. Let's say if we remember something, a memory, sometimes the memory is very clear. But sometimes some memory or something we think about is not so clear, it's a little bit fuzzy. We kind of like remember and don't remember, and it's not so clear, no? I think we all have this kind of experience. So that mind object can also sometimes be clear and not clear. And now, what kind of object can be a mind object? In the last chapter, in chapter 3, we have looked at what possibilities there are. But here I'm just going to mention a few examples. These objects can be sense object. It can be of the present, of the past, or it can be an ice cream that I took yesterday, or it can be a music or sound that we have listened before, or it can be purely an imagination or a concept of a fantasy story that we read or something, no? So it can take concept, it can take a sense object, whether it is past, present, or future. So when this object is presented in the mind, it depends whether they are clear or not, different kind of mental process will arise. Okay, now we have just talked about for an eye-door mental process to arise, it needs some kind of conditions. No, we need the eye sensitivity, the visible object, the eye, the light And then we need attention, which is the 5-door averting consciousness. So in the same way, for a mind or cognitive process or thought process to arise, we also need some conditions. Some conditions also need to be fulfilled in order for a mind or process to arise. First, we need a mind door, meaning we need bhavanga citta. That's where the information comes in, like the mind door, because it's purely, now here is in the mind, not from the outside, not from the 5 senses. Yeah, so we need mind door, bhavanga, and we need a mental object. It can be an idea, it can be an image, it can be a sound, it can be anything that is presented to the mind, that the mind, it happens in the mind, not a present object right now here that come through the 5 senses. Then we need a heart base for 5 aggregate beings. And then we need attention. And this attention here is manodora vajana citta, the mind door averting consciousness. Okay, so since in the mind door process, it is different from the 5 sense door process, the mind does not have to take a new object from outside because the object is already in the mind. Yeah. So in this case, the 5-door averting consciousness will not arise. So it doesn't need to turn into any of the 5 sense door, so it won't arise. And then eye, ear, nose, tongue, then touch also is not necessary here. So if those are not necessary, then the receiving, investigating, and determining also, they are not necessary. So for a mind door process, it will be just bhavanga vibrating, and then the mind door averting consciousness, the turning to the mind, will arise. Then immediately the 7 jhana, and if it is a sense object, then tadaramana will arise and go back to the bhavanga stream. So this is a simple mind door process. Okay, now without this manodora vajana citta, without the mind door averting consciousness, the mind door process cannot arise. So therefore, it is said that the attention that is mentioned in the conditions necessary for mind door process to arise is actually this mind door averting consciousness. Okay. Now, remember last time we said that the eye door mental process, it has 17 mind moment, which is the lifespan of the present visible, taking eye door process, yeah? The present visible object, lifespan of this present visible object. So it arises together here, and then when the process finished, then this rupa, they also cease. Therefore, they have 17 moment here, yeah? Okay. Now, for a mind door process, there are some different kinds of mind door process. Sometimes they are shorter, sometimes they are longer, because it does not depend on the lifespan of the matter. So take an example. If it is a jhana process, then sometimes the person can, when he attains jhana and stayed in the jhana attainment, then he can stay in that state for hours. Yeah. So in that case, after those, after certain chittas arise, other mind door averting consciousness, then there can be a lot of jhana chitta, billions of jhana chitta can arise in the same process. So jhana, until that person come out of that attainment. So for a mind door process, it sometimes can be so long, depending on what kind of process. And sometimes it can be shorter than 17 mind moments. So later on, we will look at all the different possibilities in the mind door. Now, there are different types of mind door process. And here we are going to talk about first 2 different types. The first type is called tadanuvatika. That is called the subsequent mental process. That means those process that follows the 5 sense door processes, because when the eye door, when some visible object is presented to the eye, then an eye door mental process will arise. Yeah, but only with that one eye door mental process, the mind actually don't understand what we just saw yet. So it needs a subsequent mind door process, subsequent mental process for the mind, to help the mind understand what we just saw about that visible object. Yeah. So those kind of process that follows, those kind of mind door process that follows the five sense door process are called the Tadanu or Vatika, which is the subsequent mental processes. And we have another type of mental process, which is called Suddha Mano Dwara Viti, which is pure mind door process. So this pure mind door process are those process that is not a consequence of an immediate preceding sense door process. So it's purely mind, not related to what we just saw or what we just listened or smell or taste or etc. No? Okay, so we have these two types of mind door mental process, and we are first going to look at the subsequent mental process. Okay, until here, all good? Yeah, okay. Now, after eye door mental process, the mind actually don't know what it has seen yet. It needs some other mind door mental process to follow up with what the eye saw. So let's see how this happened. Let's see what happens when we see something. First, when a visible object, when a present visible object came into contact with the eye sensitivity, now what happens is that the eye door mental process will occur. And in this process, we have just seen that it starts with the bhavanga, and then it lasts for the 17 mind moment if the object is very clear, and it ends with the Tadaramanaya. So in this process, only a small amount of the visible object is being taken by these chittas as its object. So in this one process, the mind is not capable to take the whole thing yet. It's just taking a small part of that visible object. And what happened after that is mind door process will occur, and then it will take what was just seen in the eye door process. It will hold it in the mind as a past visible object. No, so in the eye door process, we just saw some the present one small part, some part of that visible object. And then that process is gone. And then after that, immediately after that, after some bhavanga, a mind door process will occur. And what happens here is that the mind takes that object, what the mind eye door process just saw, it keeps it in the mind, takes it. Then another eye door process will occur. This time, it will take another part of that visible object. So in the same way, it takes some part of that present visible object. And after that, another mind door process will happen, holding this past object also in the mind. Okay. And then again, an eye door process will again happen and take another little part of that object with an eye door process. And another mind door process will again hold this past object in the mind. So this will happen repeatedly. These two processes will eye door process, mind door process, eye door process, mind door process, eye door process, mind door process. It will get as much as information as the mind can handle. And after that, another mind door process will happen. This is called a Samuha Gahana process. Samuha Gahana Viti. So in this process, the mind takes the group of the visible object as a whole. So what the mind have seen and hold in the mind, what has seen and hold in the mind, have seen and hold in the mind, it will take them as a group. But at this point, this object is still ultimate reality. It is still visible rupa. The mind doesn't know what it is yet. So it's just taking all those information as a group. After this process, another mind door process will arise. Now, this time, the mind assembled all this visible object together, and it takes the form or the shape of what we saw as the object. And at this point, it is not an ultimate reality anymore. The object that arises here has gone into the realm of concept. Now, it is a panyati, it is a concept. So, the mind assembled what we have, the information of that visible object, it combines it, and then the thing concept arises in the mind. Then the mind thinks, oh, okay, I saw something with the shape of a key. Yeah, but the word key doesn't come to the mind yet. Here it's only the thing object, so it's only the shape and the form of that thing. And after this process, another process will happen in the mind. Now this time it will take the name, if we know what it is. Yeah, so the name concept will happen here, and the mind will know, oh, this is a key. Yeah, so for the mind to understand what we saw, let's say a key is a key, it will take many processes in order for that to happen. First, the eye door process has to take some part of the visible, present visible object, and then a mind door process will happen, holding that object that is just being taken by the eye door process as its subject. Now it is a past object, because that present visible object in ultimate reality, it has already ceased after that 17 mind moment. So that past object now is the object of the mind door process. And these two processes will repeat again and again until the mind get enough information. It will then combine the information as a whole with a mind door mental process. And then another mind door process will take now the form, the thing concept as its concept. So from here, it knows the thing as a concept, not as ultimate reality anymore. Then if we know what it is, then another mind door process will name it and call it a key. So therefore, for the mind to understand something, it takes at least one type of eye door process and 4 types, this subsequent mind door process, in order for us to understand what we just saw. But of course, now we are looking at it very detailedly and like slowly, in slow motion, but the mind knows it so quickly, because billions and billions of chittas arise and passes away in the blink of an eye. So a lot of this mental process is actually happening in the mind right now. What we are hearing, what we are looking, if we are smelling something, we have some body feeling, touching something. So this mental processes is actually happening very, very, very rapidly right now in all of us. Yeah. Okay. So this is the usual process of how the mind understands something. If we see something that we don't know what it is, then what happens is that the taking name process might not arise, because we don't know what it is. So it might stop only at the thing concept process. So the 4th process sometimes can arise, sometimes might not arise. Depends on whether we know what that thing we saw is or not. Yeah. Okay. Then how about for ear door process? For ear door process, it is similar. When we listen to a sound, let's say mango, something, yeah. So what happened is that the first ear door process will hear part of the sound, some part of the sound, say, let's say man. Yeah, we don't hear the whole word yet. It might be even a smaller part, maybe or something like that, no? But a very small part we take first, and then a mind door process will arise, taking that sound, holding that sound that we just hear in the mind, man, yeah? Then another process will arise, and it will take the go, another sound, and another mind door process will arise, holding that past sound into the mind again. And then after that, in the same way, another mind door process will then take the sound that it just heard as a group. And after that, another mind door process will combine it, and the name concept would then happen, will be, oh, mango. Yeah, then that sound with the name concept, with the name of the thing, will happen in the mind. And after that will happen, if we know what it is, then maybe the image might arise in the mind. Then that becomes a thing concept. So for listening and for seeing, the process is reverse, and the naming and the name concept and thing concept. because when we see something, we see the shape first, then we name it. But when we listen to something, we know the sound, the name of it first, then maybe we think about what it is, the thing. So that process is reversed, the order is reversed. Now, if a person, he or she has never heard of mango before, or maybe he or she does not speak English, he speaks another language, so he doesn't know what mango is. So in that case, the thing concept, that process will not arise too. So it depends on different situation or what happens in the mind. So for us to understand something in the Ido process, first we must hear it clearly, and then we must know the meaning of it. Only then do the mind understand what that sound, to make sense of that, what that sound means. Yeah. Okay. So that's the working of the mind, of how we understand works and things, and how the objects that we perceive through the 5 sense door. So we need this 4 mind door process that follow the one of the 5 sense door process in order for the mind to process, to understand the object and to react to it, and to really see it or to really hear it and understand it. Okay, until here, is it all clear? Any question? No question? So it looks a little bit complicated, but it's actually just how the mind works. I think it's not so difficult to understand. Yeah? Is it okay? All right. Okay. All right, so we have seen the subsequent mental process. So in the same way, it is for the nose, for the tongue, and for the body also. Oh, not only the 5 sense door process, but with other mind door process, with the help of other mind door process, then the mind understand the object that the 5 sense object that we are taking at the present moment. Okay, so let's do a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and see if you have any kind of questions. Okay, so see you in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone.
I kept thinking about one particular question when you were talking about, how the mind takes parts of the object and then finally put it together and knows the thing and then names it and so forth. So I was thinking that is this when the Buddha taught us to how to guard the mind, so not to take the signs and particulars of visible objects and so on, so that we don't actually pay attention to, when we are mindful, we just remind ourselves, oh, we just saw something, but then we don't go deeper.
What I think is that the processes that we just explained right now, how the mind take the visible object and then put them together and then make the concept of it, is what is naturally happening all the time.
Yes.
So it is something that we cannot stop, because it is just kind of like if you put food into the stomach, then the stomach will digest. So this is a natural functioning of the stomach. Yeah. So in the same way, if you put information into the mind will process it. It's a natural process. Now, when you mentioned that the Buddha talked about seeing is only seeing, like not going into the deeper into that object, how I understand, based on our teacher's explanation, is that when we see something, don't let defilement arise because of that. That is not going deeper into that thing, because it is not possible to stop the mind from understanding a concept. Because the mind, when we see something that it knows, automatically that there is a natural process that the mind knows what it is. So it is unnatural or impossible to stop the mind to know that this is a computer, this is a cup or something. So I think the point is not to stop the mind from knowing the concept of the thing, but to stop generating attachment or defilements towards that kind of towards the object, or I mean getting into the story of it and getting attached to it. And because understanding there are different kinds of understanding. Understanding ultimate reality does not mean we have to get rid of concept. There is a Chinese saying, a Zen saying. It says, 山是山，水是水. It means mountain is mountain and water is water. It's a Zen story, a Zen saying, no? So, Sayadaw Tejaniya, my meditation teacher, he used to say this story. He says that a person, when he sees a mountain, then you show any person, he knows that this is a mountain. If you ask, if we see, if we see a mountain, any person knows that it is a mountain, right? But when we start to meditate, we understand and we know, no, a mountain is not only a mountain. A mountain is a concept. Mountain is actually made of a lot of different kinds of, a lot of rupa. Yeah, it's not just only a mountain, it's rupa. That's the first kind of understanding. We start to understand more about ultimate reality. So a mountain is not only a mountain, but it's metta. Then it's a deeper kind of understanding. But then that person, he might go to everyone else and say, do you know that this is not a mountain? It is rupa, right? So he has this kind of like understanding. It's not just a mountain. It is not mountain at all. There's no mountain. Do you know that the mountain does not exist? Then he might have this kind of understanding and feeling, yeah? But then after he practices again and again, then later, with more deeper wisdom and understanding, then he will say, it is a mountain, but it is not just a mountain. Because now he understands both concept and ultimate reality. He understands both. So the thing is not to get rid of concept, but to understand both. So when the Buddha says that seeing is only seeing, then meaning we see, of course, the mind automatically understands the concept of it too. But we must understand both. We understand that is a concept also generated by the mind, but in ultimate reality, it is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. It is impermanence, it is non-self, and it is unsatisfactory. We must understand in this deeper way and not getting into it, meaning not generating defilements because of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can only speak from my own experience and practice that, for example, when I, let's say, go out and I just glance at someone, maybe attractive, but then it's a decision that you don't look and you don't, I mean, just guarding, like you don't look, you don't, take out anything from that object.
Yes, that's
so it just remains a very slight object, maybe.
I don't think so, because if you see that person and then the mind can even understand it is attractive, I think it is a very clear object. So and then even maybe some kind of lobha might even arise, so it sounds like it's like a very clear object. But the guarding the senses, that part is the part of practice, which I think it's great. It is necessary, and it's doing the right practice in understanding like not to look too much or like that. It's just like the monks, like when the Buddha instruct the monks to go arms round, the Buddha instruct them to not be looking like here and there and like while they're going, no, in the village, like they're focusing and then they're looking at the road. That is to guard the senses, yeah, and that is right. But then the mind naturally already know the concept, already know the thing. And so it is not to stop that, but to stop going further, like generating defilements, like generating loba or generating dosa or whatever towards that object. And even better, the mind guarding the senses and then understanding that this is nama and rupa, is actually impermanent, or is nothing attractive about it, and or other things, that is the guiding the mind to the to the correct understanding, that's right view, instead of getting into the concept or thinking how nice on this and that and creating attachment. No.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Claudia.
So what I understood about the meditation is that well, actually, when we meditate, we work on the jhavana process, on the reaction of the object that we have. So is there where we stop and we break the chain of suffering. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Because if you look at the mental process, all the other chittas, if you remember, they are either functional chittas or they are, before the jhavana and after the jhavana, they are either functional chittas or they are resultant chittas, right? So for functional, they are just only doing the function. And for resultant, it's already a result. There's nothing that we can do about it. But what we can do, the active part is only the jhavana. That's where kusala and akusala happens. That's where wisdom or defilement happens. So exactly as you said, jhavana, that those moments are our reaction. And what, depending on what does this jhavana happens, kusala or akusala, that depends on our attitude. In Pali, it is called yoniso manasikara, wise attention or right attitude towards the object. Now, if we have right attitude, we react to the object in a correct way, let's say, with kusala, no? So that's there, we can generate more wisdom and have kusala mind. If the mind is not careful, so without wise attention, that's ayoniso manasikara, then in that case, then it might react with dosa, with loba, and we react with different kinds of akusala mind. So in that case, then it will generate more akusala and like that. So as you said, yes, our practice is what we can do is only in the jhavana moments.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And also, I want to ask another question about what you explained before. Like, it seems that when the object is very clear, we are more subject of being attached or crave to the object because there is less bhavanga. But I'm not sure. I don't think I get it right. I just want you to explain to me this one, please.
Yes. When it is more clear, then then it is more easily subject to loba on dosa. In a way, yes. Because if the object is not even clear, then the mind doesn't even react to it. So in order for the mind to react to it or to know it clearly what it is, then it must be something clear. Yeah. But how we react to the object with kusala or with akusala, it does not depend on, in another way, it does not depend on whether the object is clear or not. It depends on our attitude. It depends on yoniso manasikara. If we have wisdom, then we react to the object without defilements. But if there is no wise attention, yoniso manasikara, then we react to it with defilements. So the object, first of all, must be clear for the mind to understand it in order to react to it. That is true. But whether the object is clear or not, does not influence how we react to it.
Yes, because when you was explained to this topic before, I was thinking about one of my clients that he got dementia. So he's always have, I can notice that he always have this mental process of confusion. He forget a lot of things. So obviously he react then with anger, right? Because of these situations.
Yes, not necessarily, just personal experience. I have one grandfather. He passed away already, but he used to have dementia as well. And he throughout his life, he was quite a bad-tempered person, so he gets angry quite easily. So I think because of this habit, then when he got dementia, then he thinks that things, as you said, then something he can't do, and he wants to express something and he can't, and so he feels frustrated and angry about the situation. And so he at that time he was very angry at the end of his life. Yeah. But then I have another grandma, then she also had dementia, but she was very gentle. And she's always smiling. She has dementia. She doesn't remember things, and she just saw everyone, and she just say hi to everyone and say how lovely and this and that. But she don't remember your name. But she's just smiling. So she also had dementia, but her nature or her habit was not getting angry. So I think that depends on that, not because of whether he or she can receive the object clearly or not. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Yes, Edith.
I had a second question about the mental processes with the senses. So we described four types of objects, and I'm just thinking, like, I mean, is it only the Buddha who can actually recognize them, or especially the not the slight object, the very slight object, where the bhavanga only vibrates? Is it possible for us to recognize that this was like that?
That it was a very slight object?
Yes.
Yeah, for us, I don't think so, because it's only bhavanga is just shaking a little bit and goes back to the bhavanga. We won't even know that. And if the object is a little bit more clear, so say slight object, then because Chakku Vijnana, the five sense consciousness does arise. So maybe something happened. Maybe the mind knows a little bit more, but it doesn't even react to it because it wasn't clear enough. So how about whether the Buddha knows that or not? I cannot tell, but my teacher says that for the Buddha, it is said that very less bhavanga chitta arise in the Buddha's mind, because his mind is very clear all the time. And so there are less bhavanga moments in the process and between processes for the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just not clear why it's important for us, to know about the existence of this kind of process if we are not aware of them. Yeah,
because we need to understand this, because it is how nature works. And for us to understand that there is not an I or a mind, not an I, a self there that is saying that I want to see this, I see this because I am this, and I'm clear, I'm not. That it's just nature working. It's just the work of nature. There is no one there. Like the bhavanga chittas arise, how many of them arise or how they arise, it does not depend on us. It depends on so many conditions. And so it is just all of this. To understand this is to understand that there's no one there. It's only how nature works, how mind and matter, how it arises according to the nature, according to function, according to different conditions, according to things. So understanding the Abhidhamma, understanding Nama and Rupa, is to understand that there is no self. There is only Chitta, Chittasika, and Rupa running its own natural way.
Okay.
Yeah. And also the Abhidhamma, that sometimes some people might say it depends on different person. Some people might say that, why do I need all this information? It is not necessary. In a way, some people, they, how can I say, they do not want to understand too much detail because they think it is not important for their practice. Some people might think that way, like, okay, now I know about the mental process, and how is it going to help for my for my meditation practice. Yeah. So as I said earlier, this helps because then we understand how nature works without a self there, not without someone controlling it. So in that case, it is important. And for some people, it might not be necessary, but to attain enlightenment, there are 10 types of wisdom. The first one is to understand nama and rupa. Nama rupa paricheda jnana is the first step. So without understanding mind and matter clearly, that it is not possible to go further. The next step is to understand cause and effect, cause and condition. No, so without understanding all these little details, then we do not understand what is mind, what is mind, what is matter, and we do not understand how they arise, why they arise, what are the conditions, like all this. So it is like a map. It is like a menu of like the nama and rupa menu, like what we are studying right now. So if we have this information, it does not mean that when we are sitting in meditation, we try to remember every single thing. But once we have this information in the mind, when the mind are in deep meditation and it experiences something, the information is already there. Then you can see it clearly. This is this and this is that, because we have the information. If we don't, then we see something, but we don't know what it is. And to try to figure it out, then it might take much longer. So this is why this is helpful for our practice. So maybe some people think that just this much information is good enough. Or some people, they are naturally curious about how things work. They might want to know a little bit more. And so it depends on each one. But this information is why the Buddha, my teacher always says, the Buddha never said anything that is not useful for our liberation. If it is not useful, he will not teach it. Sometimes some people during the time of the Buddha have asked question like the beginning of the universe, like is there a beginning, is there an end, and all these things. And the Buddha never answered these questions because it is not necessary for liberation. But if the Buddha taught this information about mind and matter, that means it is helpful for the practice and for our liberation. So that's why he taught it. Otherwise he wouldn't. So yeah. Okay, so let's also finish with the Sudamano Dwara Viti. Those are the pure mind thought process that does not directly related to immediately preceding sense thought process. So something purely mind. Yeah. So we have just talked about that there are two types of objects, whether it is clear or whether it is not clear. So depending whether the object is clear or it is not so clear, the different mental process will arise, just like when we see in the five sense thought process. Yeah. So it may be present, past, or a future object, or it can be a five sense object, or it can be purely a concept. It is also possible. Okay. Now, for the five sense door process, we see that it has 17 mind moments. The present visible object, it lasts for these 17 mind moments. It arises here, and just by the time when this process finished, this present visible object, that rupa itself is also ceased because it has reached its lifespan. Yeah, but for mind door process, since it does not depend on outside five sense object that has the 17 mind moments of lifespan, does not depend on the rupa, so it is not restricted to the 17 moments. And you see sometimes it is much shorter. And also, since there is no outside matter that strike the five sense door, remember this one is when the object strike the eye sensitivity, ear sensitivity, etc. At the same time it strike the bhavanga citta, right? So because there is nothing, no outside object that strike the mind that way, that therefore this past bhavanga citta will also not arise in mind door process. So bhavanga stream will stream of bhavanga, and then it will just vibrate and mind door averting consciousness, and then immediately jhavana. And if it is a five sense object, then tadaramana will also arise. Then it will go back to the stream of bhavanga. That's a usual purely mind thought process when the object is clear. Okay. All right, so it will start with, begins with the vibrating bhavanga, no pass bhavanga, and it will end with 2 tadaramana for clear object, when the object is presented to the mind very clearly and it is a sense object, okay? Now, if the object is not clear, it's not so clear, yes, Claudia?
Sorry, just quickly. So the pure mind door process is shorter.
It's shorter.
And how is possible? Because like I just want to connect to the question of Austin. We have studied that you need 17 mind cetasika arising and ceasing in order of do one chitta.
One process.
Yeah, one process. Sorry.
Mm.
So how is possible that the year is shorter?
Because it does not depend, because this 17 moment, 17 mind moment it only happens in the 5 sense door process, because it is taking a present visible object that lasts for 17 mind moments, the lifespan, the present rupa that we are taking, even the sound or even the visible object, its lifespan of that rupa is 17 mind moment.
I understand now. Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah. So,
it's all good. Thank you.
Yeah. So therefore, because of its relation with the rupa that it is taking that object, therefore it is 17. But because the mind does not need to take a present rupa as its object, so therefore it is not restricted to the 17 moment. Yeah. Okay. All right. So if the object is not very clear, is a ati vibhuta object, then tadaramana will not arise. Okay. So only 2 vibrating bhavanga, vibrating, arresting, mind door averting, then the 7 jhana, and then it goes back to the stream of bhavanga, and then another process will arise, until another process. So it will begins with vibrating bhavanga and finishing with 7 jhana when the object is not very clear, or if the object is a concept, then tadaramana will not arise. Even the object is clear object, even the concept is very clear, because tadaramana only arises with a sense object. If it is a concept, purely concept, then no tadaramana. Even the concept is very clear. Okay. So in brief, there are these 2 kinds of mental process that we need to know. For a very clear object, it will be bhavanga stream. Then we have 2 vibrating bhavanga, vibrating and arresting. Then manodavara vajana, 7 jhavanas, 2 tadaramana, and bhavanga chitta will arise again into the flow. When the object is not very clear, or if it is not a sense object, then tadaramana will not arise too. So these are basically only the 2 kinds of purely mind door process. Yes, Eddie. No, it was not Eddie. Claudia, you have a question?
Yes. This pure mind process belonging to jhana, to jhanas?
No.
Or no? Or to when you are enlightened?
No, those kind of okay, let's take a look at the other at this graphic and it will become clear. Now, mind door process, we have the 5 door mental process and the mind door mental process. Yeah. So 5 sense door process is when we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch something through the 5 sense door, something present at this moment. So we have this kind of 5 sense door process. But mind door process are divided into 2 kinds. The kind that follows the 5 sense object to understand the objects better, as we just see right now, and the type of the purely mental process. I mean, purely mental meaning like I remember the ice cream that I'm eating yesterday. That is not jhana. That is not nothing to do with meditation. But I remember the ice cream that I took last night. Yeah, the ice cream is not here right now. I'm not eating. It's a purely mind door process. I just remember something. So that kind of a process, purely mind door. Or sometimes the mind is singing a song. Yeah, so it's taking that sound object only in the mind, because now I'm not listening to it actually. So they are purely mind or process. But as you said, the other process, jhana process and magga process, they are also purely mind or process, but they are of different kind, because they are not with sense object. They are with apana object, with attainment. Yeah. So that will be another type of mental process, which we will look at from next week. We still have a lot of different kind of mental process to look at. The jhana process, the magga, that when we get enlightened, how it works, like what kind of process happened, and then abhinya as well, supernormal power, when the person attained the highest jhana, fifth jhana, and then practice further, then he has some kind of different ability, different of power. Then those kind of mental process we'll also look at. We'll also look at the dying process, like when a person die, what happens, like what kind of process, and so on. So there are more processes to look at, but today we have looked at these 5 sense door process, the usual ones, and the purely mind door process. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Until here, I hope it is clear. And I noticed that I am talking a little bit fast and giving the information very quickly. So maybe it is a lot to digest. So I encourage you, if you have time, maybe to go through the videos again and maybe pause in between and see the different kinds of process. I mean, if it is the first time that we study the Abhidhamma, it is okay, and it is good that we have an idea of what is there. And later, if we are interested and we want to know more, we can always investigate more or go back to the video and see again. Because when I'm preparing this material for you, I also go back to the notes that my teacher gave me, and then I see something, I didn't remember this, and I didn't remember this, I didn't remember this. So there is a lot of information. We can always study more and more. But for the first round, to have a rough idea of how mind and matter works, I think it's good enough. Then later, Abhidhamma is something that we have to keep studying again and again and again if we want to know deeper and deeper. Yeah. Okay, so until here, I think it's good enough for today. If you have no more questions, then we will finish here and continue next week. Yes, Edith.
I just wanted to ask you to give us examples for the mind or process, a clear object and a not so clear object. I'm actually not. So I'm just wondering about the not clear object, I guess. I don't really know.
A not clear object, I would say, for example, if I remember a childhood memory, let's say it seems so far and it's not so vivid, and it is like I remember something more or less like that, but I don't remember exactly. Like it's not very clear. That could be something that is not very clear. That is a purely mind, because I'm just remembering something. That is that could be one example.
It's just weird because the jhavanas, the reaction is still there. Like even if it's a non-clear object, you still react and create karma. Like it's terrible.
But this type of in these processes, because it is the mind is not understanding it very well yet, so those karmas are not strong.
Okay.
My teacher explained, even in the 5 sense door process, if you see in the eye door process, the eye just took a little bit of the visible object as an object. It doesn't know even what it is, but jhavanas is still there, so the mind is still reacting to it one way or another. Well, I don't know with what, but actually it does react to it. But because it is so weak, it is not so with so much intention, to whether I like it with loba or I understand it with wisdom. So those kind of karma, I have asked my teacher the same question, because it would be so terrible that we are reacting all the time without even knowing. Yeah. But then he says that in those kind of process, those jhavanas are weak. So you don't have to worry about that too much, but only when we fully understand the object, and now yes, I am wanting this now really loba, then those jhavanas are strong.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So in that case, then let's close by sharing merits and also by dedicating our effort to the attainment of Nibbana. Okay. Itam no punyam nibbana pachayo hotu. Itam no punyam nibbana pachayo hotu. Itam no punyam nibbana pachayo hotu. Itam no punyam savasatanam bhajima. Itam no punyam savasatanam bhajima. Itam no punyam savasatanam bhajima. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.